this has really been a joy for me to do, because going through all of these bulletins and reading them, and it takes about 2 hours to go through a year's worth of bulletins just scanning. So you can imagine the work that's been put into this to gather this information. Now, I wrote a lot of stuff down in a notebook, and I'm not going to tell everybody everything, because we'd be here 3 or 4 hours if I did. Everything that I'm going to say came out of the bulletins, so I'm assuming that everything that went in the bulletins are correct. May not be. So, but that's not my fault. If it sounds like that I'm going to be reading this, that would be a good thing, because I'm probably going to be reading most of this. And I'm going to follow it down in chronological order. And I'm going to try to get through this as much as I can within 30 minutes. And then we'll have the members of the congregation that want to come forward, or stand where you are, and Brown will give you the mic, but don't start talking until you do get the mic. Now, we have a mic up here also, so if you feel like you want to come to the front and stand here, feel free to do so. I'm going to go ahead and start this. I do have a few slides that I want to show, and I'll start with the first one, is our building. Now, I could not find, in the short time that I had, a picture of our building as it was in 1983 or 84 when we built it. I know there probably is one, I just have not found it. So we'll use this, and everybody can see the building that we built on the hill up there, and that's the way it looked before the education wing was built on. The first worship service at Roebuck Parkway was on June the 12th, 1983. Elders at the time of the move were Saul Godwin, Clyde Hall, James Lawler, Norman Oakes, Leroy Owens, and C.C. Taggart. And a few months later, Darnell Self was added to the as a leader, as an elder. From June the 12th through December the 31st, Roebuck Parkway had 91 new members and 26 baptisms. Now, as we go, I'm going to try to mention that if it's listed in the bulletin. A lot of times toward the end, they quit putting the baptisms for the whole year in the bulletin, but I think early on it shows that this congregation was growing by leaps and bounds, and it was because of the evangelistic nature of this congregation, and it was really, really exploding, this congregation. 1984, by November, the Woodlawn building had not been sold, so to help retire the debt, the elders decided to sell bonds, and they sold $300,000 worth of bonds in November of that year. Also in November, on November the 18th, Roebuck Parkway saw a new attendance record set, 591 at the Sunday services. I got a little drip problem, so excuse me. A total of 64 placed membership that year, and 41 were baptized. Membership at the Roebuck Parkway was growing very fast due to the efforts of many dedicated evangelistic men and women in the program, such as our Monday night visitation programs, Bring a Friend Day, Friend and Family, and other many new programs of outreach. On January the 20th, 1985, Ansel Norris was installed as an elder. The Living Word radio program had been broadcast in Belize since 1969. That's radio. But in April of 1985, we were able to put the Living Word telecast on a TV show and broadcast it in two of Belize's biggest cities. On April the 7th, of 1985, Roebuck Parkway saw another new attendance record of 621, which was again broken on October the 27th with 629. Also in April was when Tim Shoemaker and his family came to Roebuck Parkway to begin working with the deaf and Birmingham Bible School for the Deaf. By the end of the year, Roebuck Parkway had 35 baptisms and 58 who placed membership. In 1986, in February or March, the carport entrance at room 108 was added on. I bet everybody thought that was when the building was built, but it was not until 1986 before that was added on. On June the 23rd to June the 26th, Roebuck Parkway was blessed to be able to host the 24th National Workshop for the Deaf. By the end of the year, there were 100 new members and 43 baptisms. 1987, in April, God answered our prayers and we were able to sell the First Avenue property to the United States Post Office for $250,000. Roebuck was met with tragedy in May of that year, 1987, when a member of the youth group, Scott Murphy, was killed in a tragic car accident just a few days before his graduation from high school. Scott was very active in the youth group, very popular, and it was a really sad day for our youth program at that time. He had planned on becoming a gospel minister. On May the 24th of 1987, BBSD graduated Jack Williamson. Hal Sudreth, who was the deaf minister here before Ray Powell, and of course Ray Powell graduated in that same group, and he is still our deaf minister here at Roebuck. August the 7th through the 9th, Roebuck Parkway hosted the first annual Christian Youth Enrichment Seminar on drug abuse, and over 250 teenagers from 23 different churches of Christ and 13 different denominational groups attended. Also, that was in September of that same year, we were able to start Bible Roundup. 1988, in February, Roebuck Parkway purchased a new bus, and I believe it was our first bus that we had. Also, BBSD celebrated 10 years of training deaf preachers. At that time, there were 16 deaf preachers in the whole, throughout the world, and 7 of them had been trained right here at Roebuck Parkway. In 1989, in May, Charles Whittington was appointed elder here at Roebuck. August the 6th, we began a program called We Folks. It was a program for children in the preschool department. 1990, our prison ministry had been a big part of Roebuck Parkway evangelistic outreach, and on January the 11th, 16 members here held services at St. Clair Correctional Facilities, and the next month in February saw 2 baptisms and 20 BCCs, Bible correspondence courses. In February, the young marriage class had their first annual Sweetheart Banquet. On April the 28th was the first annual church picnic. Does anybody know where it was at? This is informal now, so anybody can speak up. Where? It was at Palisades. Palisades in Aniana. Do you remember what it was called? It wasn't called Church Picnic. It was actually called, this was the first time, and I don't think it was ever used again, but it was called Congregational Spring Outing Day. So I can understand why it was never used again. Somebody shortened it real quick. So, but anyway, it was also the year what year am I on? 1990, that we opened up the balconies, and which allowed for 70 more seats in the auditorium for services. Because of the continued growth, Roebuck Parkway began 2 morning services that year, 1990. That was in October, and we were able to build 40 new parking spaces and added. At year end, 67 placed membership and 24 were baptized. On February the 14th, 1991, a new program was started by Chuck Spitzley called CASA, C-A-S-A, and that stands for Christians Against Substance Abuse. And that has been a really strong program over the years. And Chuck has really done an outstanding job with that. September the 3rd saw the start of Roebuck Parkway Day School for ages 2, 3, and 4. Also in September, Ron Cobb was appointed elder of Roebuck Parkway. And by the year end of 1991, Roebuck was averaging 628 for Sunday services, 78 placed membership, and had 52 baptisms that year. In 1992, in October, Roebuck began Wednesday night dinners, which is still popular. Also in October saw the beginning of the Fall Festival, and that was for the 2-year-olds up through the 6th grade at that time, but it's since been enhanced, and it's really been a great outreach program for this congregation. In November of 1992, Nathan Heisler began work as associate minister in personal work. After many years of the elders setting the church budget, which saw quite a few periodic makeup contribution days because we would fall below that budget, which we needed to maintain the programs and the expenses of this congregation. And at that time decided to let the congregation make the budget with their purpose cards, and that's how the budget got started that way, instead of the elders setting the budget and trying to maintain it. It's actually, I believe, proved to be much better. By the year end, there had been 46 baptisms. 1993, on June 6th, the elders made a decision to devote one Sunday contributions solely for mission work. The regular budget would be figured on a 51 Sunday contribution at that point, and that's worked out really well. On September the 27th of 1993, Roebuck saw the beginning of a new Tuesday morning class called Seniors in Action. And it's not called that anymore. They've changed it. It was later changed to, of course, Christians in Action. And it still is a popular program today. 1994, February, was the beginning of clearing property for our new education wing. In April, the church picnic moved to Tanny Hill State Park. Anybody remember going to Tanny Hill? About getting blown away by tornadoes. But we went there for a few years. And June the 25th was open house for the new Rainbow Omega in Talladega, just off of I-20. Brother Jerry Jenkins was heavily involved in that. He was on the board. And we have one of our brothers, Matthew Harris, the son of Jan and Dan Harris, that still go here. He is a resident there now, so that's proved to be a very good place for those of that condition like Matthew has. At year end, 1994, Roebuck had 44 baptisms by then. 1995, in April, Lads to Leaders, Leaderettes go to Atlanta for the first time. Now, they've been going to Nashville for all this time, but Nashville, things had really grown so big, and it was so tight up there, and so many going there that they had to, Roebuck decided to go to Atlanta, and they started it that year in 1995, and that's where they still go, over to Atlanta. In April, Nathan Heisley resigns as Minister of Personal Evangelism. Also, a new program called We Care started. I'm not going into detail because, like I said, I could talk for 3 hours on this if I started into detail. April and May, Roebuck members worked together to construct two retainer walls related to our new wing, and it saved the church $85,000. So that was a great deal there. May the 21st, Merrill Mann and Ed Cooper were added to the eldership. That's May 21st of 1995. On October the 22nd, Roebuck Parkway used our new fellowship hall for the first time. And that's our new building now, as it opened that year in 1995. They also were able to use the classrooms in that building too, started using it at that time. In December, we saw the beginning of the renovation of a lot of the classroom areas in this, what we call the older building, and a lot of the classrooms were renovated and redone. 1996, January, decision was made to remodel our balconies, and this is the way it is now with the rails and everything. I don't think the rails were added to begin with, but they came in and added the rails not long after that. I think they were afraid some kids were going to fall off, or some of the old people get up and lose their balance, like me, and go over. But anyways, it was a really nice addition. September the 8th was the first attempt to use our big screen, and it's been a part of our service worship ever since. I know we had problems to begin with, and I'm not sure what the problems were, and it might have been with the camera or whatever it is up there trying to get focused. But anyway, we were able to start using that screen in September 8th, 1996. The end of the year, 1996, we had 61 baptisms. I know this is boring, but I don't know of any other way to do it. And on May the 9th, our church picnic moved to Zamora Park for the first time. And that turned out to be a pretty nice place until we just about got run out by all the campers. On November the 6th and the 7th, Roebuck Parkway hosted the Marriage Enrichment Seminar. I don't know if anybody remembers that or not, but that was a very popular seminar all across the United States, and you really had to get in line to get that brought to the congregation, to this church here, about a year or year and a half ahead of time. And that was put on by Paul Faulkner and Carl Burkeen. And they were actually professors out at Abilene Christian University. And it turned out that a pretty good attendance came from throughout Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, and Tennessee. And if I remember correctly, we had somewhere between 350 and 400 people show up for that two-day event. 1999, May the 26th, Hal Sudreth announced as our new deaf minister after Roy Price left in February. In June, we saw the creation of the church's new website. I don't remember what it was called right now. I do remember seeing what it's called, but it's not what it is right now. We had 85 new members in 1999 by the end of the year. In 2000, In January, Sister Jean Owens, who had been on the office staff and very instrumental in answering the calls from the Living Word telecast, retired after 30 years of service. And on June the 3rd, turned out to be a sad day for Roebuck Parkway. We lost one of our elders that had been here for, oh, did I write that down? Yeah, I did. Brother Taggart was called home to be with the Lord after serving 47 years as an elder, and very instrumental in our moves to where we are right now. I'm going to save that to the end. In 2001, in March, we had a new minister of personal evangelism come in. His name was Art Welburn. In April, again, Ron Cobb and Steve Brown were added as new elders. And in 2001, we had a big growth, 111 new members that year. 2002, in February, the church began providing a studio apartment close to the medical center for those families from out of town who had family members that were in the hospital, and this gave an outlet for them to come in and have a place to stay without worrying about having to get hotel rooms or staying here or staying there. So that was a good thing. 2003, on January the 27th, the 60th Street congregation or 60th Street building burned down. I don't know whether anybody remembers that or not. I know there was a picture of it, but I don't know where I saw that picture. Do you? Do you remember seeing a picture?
Yeah, we've got a picture of it.
Okay.
On a cold March morning,
Yeah.
2003, burned.
Now, I'm just giving summary of all this. Just about all of this is going to be in our written history, so we won't lose it. So I want everybody to be able, when time comes and when it's ready, to be able to have a copy of that written history of this congregation. In April was the beginning of our auditorium renovation. They came in and changed out all of the carpets. They took out all of the pews and refinished all of these pews, and we had our church services in the large fellowship hall, I guess for weeks, maybe even months. In June, Roebuck Parkway purchased 2 more buses, and I think that gave us a total of 3. November the 2nd, 2003 was Friend and Family Day at Roebuck, and finally, the attendance record of 1,000 was made, with 1,003 in attendance that day. Made quite a few people happy, including Jerry. 2004, in September, Kyle Massengale was hired as Director of Education. Again, on Friends and Family Day, that attendance record was broken again, with 1,008 this time. 2007, we hired a new youth minister here at Roebuck Parkway by the name of John Podine. I don't think he was here but about a year or even less. We also had a beginning of our new web page, thegospelspeaks.com, and I believe that's what it is now still. 2008, in April, John Podine resigns as youth minister, and David Currington, anybody know him? Came on and took that position, and he's done an outstanding job since then. Also, we saw in 2008 we saw Kyle Massengale leave his work with us here at Roebuck Parkway to take a job with a church in Madison. Brings us to 2010. On October the 25th, we lost our pulpit minister, Jerry Jenkins. He passed away at the age of 74, and he was a motivator, and much of the success of the growth of our congregation is attributed to him, Brother Jerry. Also, during that time, Brother Jerry was instrumental in broadcasting the Living Word telecast, and it broadcast for 44 years while he was here at Roebuck Parkway, and it was the longest running religious broadcast in the state of Alabama. After Brother Jenkins died, Tim took over as pulpit minister, and he did a great job for December, for about a year, I guess it was, until we hired a new pulpit minister, which we have today, and that's Brother Jason. I hope these are changing. Yes. So I get nervous when I have to use this thing because I see a lot of other people, including Tim up here. Things not working. But Brother Jason Moon preached his first sermon. Do you remember the day? Where's Jason? You remember the day? I just wanted to see if you could remember it. October the 5th, 2011. October the 5th, 2011. And done an outstanding job since then.
She says July 17th was when I was announced.
Oh, okay.
And I did preach that day too.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Was that official? That's not what the bulletin said.
It's the first regular Sunday I was here.
Yeah, okay. Okay. All right. It didn't take 30 minutes. I'm surprised. So, but one thing I did want to mention, something I learned today, and is Hoyt McKinney with us? Was he not here? I was told today that Hoyt McKinney was heard Brother Jerry Jenkins' first sermon and his last sermon. So that's something to hold on to.
There were several of us that did that.
Yeah, there's quite a few. This is the only one that I remember, that told me though. So, but right now, I'm going to ask that for anybody.
Didn't we have a friendship evangelism seminar back in the 90s? You didn't mention?
I didn't mention everything that was in the bulletins. I skipped a lot of stuff.
Well, that just really something.
That was actually one of the evangelistic programs that helped boost the attendance in this congregation. But there were others too. And I think one of the biggest things that helped with evangelism in this congregation were our members going out on Monday nights at our Monday night class that Brother Heisler started, and it mentioned that they were 20, 30, and sometimes even 40 coming out on Monday nights to get their assignments to go out and make visits and set up studies. And I think that was probably one of the biggest things that helped boost the attendance and the growth of this congregation. Of course, there was plenty of others, and there were plenty of people involved in that. But I mentioned Brother Heisler, and I mentioned Brother Jerry, and I mentioned a few others, Leroy Owens. They were all motivators to get out and go out and visit people, and to encourage others to go out and visit people. So we might want to keep that in mind when time comes that we move to Deerfoot Parkway. All right, there's I'm going to ask for anybody that wants to say something, you're welcome to. This is very informal. Brown Rogers has a mic that he'll bring to you if you don't want to get up. Or you can come right here. We've got a mic right here too. You can stand here at the podium and tell everybody. But if you say anything at your seat, please stand up so people can see you. And don't talk until you get the mic in your hand. So I see one ready to go. Oh, what? One more. No, I'm going to let everybody do this first and then I'll do mine.
Going back to before 1983, and the elders decided that we needed to move from Woodlawn, we were looking for a piece of property, and this property here came available. We were working with Charles Poe Real Estate, and he was asking $500,000 for the property. Well, we didn't have $500,000, and as Mike mentioned, we sold $300,000 worth of bonds. Well, you can see that left us short about $200,000. And we negotiated, and I don't remember who the owner of the property at that time was, but we negotiated with him, and we gave him a letter of contribution of around $200,000, and he accepted that. Now, you know, we say the Lord don't really work miracles nowadays, but he does work through the providence. So we believe in the providence of God. We have the same problem now in moving to Deerfoot. And somehow, some way, if we believe, God will help us, and he'll find a way. And because of Charles Poe working with us and this man accepting that letter of contribution, we were able to pull it off. And on another note, as soon as we got ready to move, the post office wanted to buy our property. Well, we felt like that they were not offering us enough money for it, and so we took it upon ourselves to lease the building out, and we had all kinds of problems, and it went for a few years. And guess who we finally sold the property to? The post office.
And they tore the building down.
And they tore it down.
I'm not going to be long. I got some notes. As chairman of the building committee for the first section of this building, Stan Bishop was the chairman for the second addition to this building. I made one of the worst mistakes that a chairman could make of a building committee. I got all the ladies of the congregation together on a Sunday afternoon and asked them to pick colors for this building. It was an absolute disaster. Oh, you can't hear it? All right. One of the things that we did for this $300,000 talking about is we had an all-night prayer session that really got us started. And about 2 or 3 days later, after that, a man came with $250,000 and wanted to buy bonds at $250,000. So I said that because it might be a good thing on this move to Deerfoot if we have an all-night prayer session here. I did want to say that my daddy's picture was up there, and he was the first speaker in this building. And it was on a Wednesday night, and Jerry wanted him to be the first speaker, so he led the invitation on Wednesday night. And so I give Jerry all the credit for that because Daddy really didn't want to do it, but he sort of talked him into it. I want to give you just a few things. There was a mention about building that wall to save $85,000. We saved thousands of dollars on this building because the men of this congregation came every Saturday for a year and worked on this building. We were the laborers of this building. and we saved thousands of dollars. This auditorium right here has a concrete floor, and under this concrete floor is gravel. And the men of this congregation spread this gravel and leveled it at a slope so the concrete could be poured. We ran into a problem. Like I said, we didn't have any money, hardly at all. And they came up with this idea that we had to have a water fire service. It had to come from the street down here all the way up, and there had to be 2 fire hydrants set. And so the men of this congregation laid this water line from the street up here and covered it up, shovelfuls. And I know we'll forget who was going to set the fire hydrants. So Darnell Self said, I'll set one, and I think Bill Sims worked with him to set there was 2 fire hydrants set. And I know we'll forget them down there trying to set those fire hydrants. But they must have done a good job, because the pipeline or the fire hydrants never leaked when they put the water pressure back on. The wall, I'd tell you one thing about the wall, and I'll quit. We put this wall up by the dumpster back there, and it was one of these deals that it couldn't be done. But the men of this congregation put it up, and later on, I found out who it was later on. Nathan Heisler hired this guy to come, and he said that this wall is going to fall, and that he wanted the congregation to tear it down and spend thousands of dollars putting this wall back up. And I'm here to say, you could put sticks of dynamite behind that wall and it would not come down. Yeah.
Don't overlook the fact that we had ladies assisting on that.
Yeah.
We painted, we cleaned, we were up there
Right.
week after week after week.
Well, I didn't want to stay up here all night, but every room and every block was painted by the members of this church, except the auditorium. We hired from to paint the walls, and so there was a lot of money saved. And I remember this. Jerry insisted that we have runners on the steps. We were going to just leave them concrete, and he said, absolutely not. We've got to have runners on all the steps going upstairs. Rick?
You know about those visitor parking spaces we painted that Saturday?
Yeah, now you're getting into stuff now that let's start with the paving. The paving here does not have any gravel under it in the new section, which would have cost us thousands of dollars. What we did is we brought a man in, and he drilled where the paving was going to go, and he told us this is Center Point, church, and he said, you don't need it. It'll stay here forever. And so we eliminated it and paved all of this first section without any gravel under it. And then the men of the congregation striped the paving, which is no easy job, I guarantee you that. All right, thank you.
Back, but we painted some visitor parking spaces over here on this parking lot. Roberta may remember this because she's the one that brought it to our attention. Now here's 2 or 3 college degrees out there, Harding College in Alabama, and we have made patterns and got the letters, and we painted nice yellow signs out there, visitor parking. And I think it might have been Roberta drove by after 3 spaces and said, you spelled visitor wrong. We spelled it the way you pronounce it, visitor. Jack, I'm surprised you'd forget that. So we had to put a wire brush to the visitor and turn it into visitor parking.
Donna.
David Dominic was converted as a result of working with Brother Jerry on the wall. And that was one thing I wanted to say. One of the Sundays, one of the Bring a Friend Day, we had like 102 visitors brought by 53 members. I thought that was outstanding.
Well, we're pretty new here. We came in we came in 2002, I believe, in February, and we were looking around because we had moved over behind JCA, and we'd moved from the other side of town, and so we had asked our boys to help us locate a church, and we visited several places, and finally they decided on Roebuck, and so I mean, it was fine with us. We liked it, and about after a couple of months, our oldest Ben said he was riding in the car with my wife. He said, I just don't know. He said, I don't know about Roebuck. He said, one thing I don't like about Roebuck, and his Trish said, well, what is that? He said, we just didn't move over here soon enough. So that's all I've got to say. The youth program was really great for the boys. So.
I just want to mention two little facts. The class of 1983 for Jefferson Christian Academy was the first official thing in this building. I didn't realize that we graduated before the first service was held here, but they allowed us to have graduation in May in this building. The walls back there, the church couldn't decide if we wanted to have them stained or not, so they were not stained to begin with, those pieces of wood. So the pictures of our graduation, the wood's not stained. Shortly after that, they were stained. And then Mark and I were the second couple to be married in this congregation, in this building. So. No, Becky Latham was first in August, and we were married in January the following year.
The numbers on the wall up there and what that represented.
Every baby in the nursery.
Yeah, every baby in the nursery had a number. And if your number flashed on there, you better head to the nursery.
Come to the nursery.
That's right.
They worked for several years, and then, I mean, they got.
I think lightning hit it.
Right, and
So,
then Mark just could not.
yeah,
It could
couldn't
not
get it
be
be fixed.
We just had
So,
to close it. But it was a nice, convenient thing. We didn't have to disturb the whole service by getting it.
But if your number was a consistent one up.
yeah, mine came up a few times. Patrick.
Zero through 10.
I think that's what broke the.
I'd like to elaborate on something that you mentioned, Mike. I became a member here in 1990. I believe it was April 27th, Jerry baptized me, and I give a lot of thanks to my sister-in-law, Eunice. She really was, throughout my life, at that time, more of like an older sister, a big sister to me, where I had never had a sister well, the only sister I had was born with Down syndrome, and there's 7 boys in my family, so there were really no girls, in the family. But I always looked up to Eunice as an older sister, but in April 20, I believe it was 27th, I had was searching in my life at that time for a relationship with God, and Jerry came and studied with me on a couple evenings and baptized me here on April 27th. When we started CASA, it was George and Brenda Copefell, who were cousins of Jerry and Mamie, who gave me a booklet, and that booklet was named Loose Him and Let Him Go. And of course, we know that those words come out of John 11:44 when Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. And I began researching that booklet and looking into that program and visiting other congregations at that time of my life, because I was looking at how other congregations had started support groups for people with substance abuse issues and difficult, family issues in their families, and so I had asked the elders about that, and it was kind of funny. C.C. Taggart befriended me at that time in my life, and then of course at the same time, around that time, Jerry Jenkins gave me the keys to this church. And I knew we were studying somewhat on Peter receiving the keys of the kingdom from Jesus. And I don't know, I got a bright idea. I talked to Jerry about it. He said, well, you're going to have to take this to the elders, and I wanted to talk to him about starting a CASA support group here, because I had visited down in Texas where they started the program in 1988. And they said, well, you're going to have to write up a proposal and this, that, and another. I thought, proposal? Okay, So we did that, Lana, Spencer, and I. And then when I went before them, and they, I really felt a little intimidated, going in there in that big table with all these guys in suits, and stuff. And I'm going, wow, and they said to me, why do you suppose we need this program at Roebuck Parkway? And the only answer I could come up with was because I was here. And they said, well, let us think about this program for a while, and we'll let you know. So that really became much of the backbone of our prison ministry. I know Charles Baggett really started teaching and using the New Life Behavior curriculum, and then New Life Behavior and CASA became one program, and I believe it was 1998. And Buck Griffith became the president over that program when it came together. So that's what I wanted to say about CASA and how we got that started.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks a lot, Chuck. I've got one more slide that I'm going to put up, and after I talk a few minutes about that, then Rick is going to come and close it out and make his comments and close out with a prayer. I need to get that last slide put up on the screen. There you go. In August was a sad day for our congregation here, and we learned that Amy Glass, the daughter of Rick and Marilyn, was tragically killed in an auto accident in Nashville, Tennessee, where she was working. She had graduated from Freed Hardeman, and she was a big influence on a lot of people here. Her memory lives on through a Freed Hardeman scholarship fund that has helped a lot in this congregation. And I mention this because, and another thing I wanted to mention along with it was that her funeral was held here in this building. At the time, the membership had, the attendance had not gone over 1,000, but the services here, they held over, I think they counted over 1,100 members in this, that came to this service at that time. And I think 2 or maybe 3 buses from Freed Hardeman came down and attended. But I mention this because I wanted Rick to come up and tell about this scholarship fund. And it's a very good scholarship fund. It's one of the fastest growing scholarship funds that Freed Hardeman has. And I'm going to let him tell about it in his own words and also have our closing prayer. Rick?
Thanks, Mike. Mike gave us a heads up about this, asked us to be okay. It's definitely okay. I could stay here about 3 hours talking about Amy. One thing, Brother Jerry had a real affection for Amy. We felt that, and just one of the few times I ever saw him lose his composure was when he was helping us with some of the arrangements, and just lost his composure just briefly. But Brother Jerry appreciated women. Women worked and served for the Lord. After Mike talked to me the other day and today coming in, Paul, what did Paul cite? He cited Lois and Eunice, your grandmother's name. And what a great lady she was. And talk about Brother Taggart, Mike. In my life, I've looked at 3 or 4 elders and I've known. And C.C. Taggart and Herman King were 2 of those model elders. I said, man, at that time I didn't think I'd be an elder, but to be an elder like them would be a great compliment for any of us that are today. But Brother Jerry appreciated people. He made everybody feel like they were special. And we felt that, our family did, and our girls were privileged to work with him in Belize. He took Amy away from me after working with her one time, but they were a good team. And somebody said she could fill a room with her presence. But there's some other ladies that we were thinking about in this church that we don't mention much, but they impressed Brother Jerry too. One of them was Selena Cason. Brother Jerry had respect for you. You knew it. And he expressed his appreciation. And Selena, many of you knew Selena. I didn't know her very well, but I knew of her because of what we heard about her and how the great esteem that Brother Jerry held her in, and how she taught people, despite a terrific disability, was ALS, I believe, or something like that, and just went on. And another lady was Ann Smith. Ann, and of course, very different ladies, but we were in Belize when Ann passed away and got the news, but her boy was there, one of her children, Jason was there and got the news, and knew Ann would want him to be there on that campaign. A lot of people don't know there's a sort of a garden there at the corner of the office where 2 trees were planted, one for Selena and one for Ann. Yeah, I lobbied for a while for a plaque down there, but never have seen the plaque. But memory, Mike, thank you for tonight. Thank Brown, you guys, for all these nights. I could go every Sunday night for weeks and hear these stories about, just life at Woodlawn and Roebuck. It's just great. And there's one other lady that was a Woodlawn lady. Her name was Olna Rogers. Another lady that was so respected by Jerry, and an unforgettable character, I guess, would have been in Reader's Digest. But She was a special lady to us. I loved your mother. And Brother Jerry respected her so much. She showed a maternity dress for Marilyn, one of those little things people do. One thing I wanted to say about, and I told Mike when he asked me about the funeral service and everything, we teased Brother Jerry a lot that Amy filled the building on one shot and he hadn't got it filled yet. But Charles McDonald told me this. Two other thing, there were tragedies at Woodlawn we didn't talk about. There was a deacon that was killed, and Ansel and Ruby lost Lamar, and Jerry and Francis lost their little girl. And those were some of the first people that came to minister us when we lost Amy. Was Ansel and Ruby and Francis and Jerry. Just know to tell us what they'd been through and help minister us through that. One thing before I tell you about the scholarship and we'll finish. Charles McDonald brought up the fact that when the Harper family was visiting here is when Amy died, Scott Harper family, and they were just so overwhelmed by the love that this congregation showed to us, and any time this happens. They placed membership. They said they wanted to be a part, and Charles said, this is what this church does. If you're hurting, we're going to hurt with you. If you're rejoicing, we're going to rejoice with you. And so that family placed membership because of that activity. Okay, Mike asked me to talk about the scholarship. A lot of you have contributed to this through the years. There are actually 3 scholarships at Freed with connections to Roebuck. One is the Betty Hall Memorial Scholarship that Clyde started. There's a Jenkins Scholarship there for preacher students. And, of course, the Amy Glass Scholarship was started very soon. I think Brother Jerry was instrumental in that, and my son-in-law, Kyle, I think had some instrumental activity in that starting. But it now has over $300,000 in the fund. The fund is what people contribute and then what their investment team invests. They use 5% of the 5-year average to give a scholarship. So this year it'll be $15,000. And, of course, every year it grows. They invest the money. You give the money, or other people give the money. Every dime that's been given stays there. It goes on to principal. If you gave $10 or $100 or whatever, it stays there and grows. They invest it. They dispense the money for scholarships. 3 girls connected to this church have received scholarships. Gina Benton, if you remember Gina from years ago, just coincidentally, they sent us a letter and said, we'd like to tell you the scholarship is going to Gina Benton of Birmingham, Alabama. I said, oh, duh. They didn't know she went her year, so we were thrilled. And then they do listen to us if somebody mentions somebody, and we mentioned Megan Seibert to them. And so she received the award. And then Nancy's niece, Lexi, had actually helped to raise funds for that scholarship, Lexi Green, and she got a scholarship last year. And last year, they made an exception for the social work because one of Amy's first grade students had written the college and asked about the scholarship, and they made an exception to put her, to give him that scholarship. A chemistry major. But the first scholarships were awarded in 2001 and 2. They were for $1,000, 2 $500 scholarships. This year it'll be $15,000. And it's a great thing you can do. Memories are a great thing. It's great to remember Sister Betty or remember Brother Jerry or Sister Mamie in a donation of those scholarships. It means a great deal. One of the worst things I think a family can feel is that their loved one is forgotten. And we appreciate you guys. We know Amy isn't. And just really appreciate you, Mike, for doing this. Anything else? We'll have a closing prayer. It's been a great day at Roebuck. God and Father, we thank you so much for every blessing you give us. We thank you for the blessing of church family. And when we can rejoice together, we can hurt together. And when we're hurting, our family members will build us up and support us. Thank you, Father, for memory. Thank you for the precious memories of those like C.C. Taggart and Herman King and Brother Jerry Jenkins who were so strong in this congregation and making this congregation the light on the hill that it is, has been, and will be on that same hill in Deerfoot, Lord. Thank you, Father, for friends and the fellowship we enjoy as a church family. Thank you for memory. And thank you for the grand reunion, as Brother Jason has so fitly reminded us today, that grand reunion we're all going to have someday with you. Help us, Father, always to live our lives so that people have no doubt of where we're going to be. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thanks,
Rick,
Mike.
thank you,
Appreciate
brother.
it.